Wasn't there a thing called the Fear Factory down at Machinery Row?
Yeah.
Did they just relocate over at City?
Maybe that's where they went. Yeah.
You know, with all this time off, people are losing track of what day it is. It's a good thing that we're here, because they know it's Monday when they see Talking Racine.
There you go.
And as usual, I'm flanked by George Myers.
Yeah, over here.
And Jim Spodek, our eminent producer, and I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen, your host. And this morning we're going to talk about, we're going to briefly mention a couple items, but there's one item that we want to dwell on a little bit. We're going to mention first Mayor John Dickert, former Mayor John Dickert. Now, we talked last week. In fact, he was a guest here on the show. Didn't have much to say. But he was involved in an incident in the Piggly Wiggly parking lot over on Washington Avenue. And now we have it from a very reliable source that there's been an eyewitness to that encounter, and that John Dickert did, in fact, as we suspected, initiate the squabble that took place. And apparently he ended up getting the worst of the confrontation. So
the other guy was just defending himself, basically. What
it
looks like. We haven't.
Well, that's certainly all the information that we've got is consistent with that view. So
we'll get the videos and that type of stuff.
Yeah, we'll as we get more, we will bring it to your attention and show it to you and share it with you. And I think I don't know how many people, probably not very many people, remember political fiction theater.
It could. It's out there, yeah.
But we highlighted a couple of mayors and their bad behavior on political fiction theater. And, you know, now with John's behavior here recently, I think he's a candidate for this political fiction mayoral Hall of Fame.
Oh, man.
All right. Now, one other thing we wanted to mention was Unified, which is part of the referendum tomorrow, if you go out and vote. And we encourage everybody to take part in our democracy. But these are flyers that have come from Unified School District. These are big, expensive mailings, you know, and there's 10 of them here.
When you're talking $1 billion, what's a couple $100,000 or something?
Yeah.
They had to spend at least
quite a campaign.
A couple $100,000 on these.
Yeah.
At least. So, you know.
It would be a good return if they can get the vote.
If they get $1 billion, $200,000 is chump
Yeah.
change to get that passed.
Yeah.
But anyway, be sure and get out and vote tomorrow. That's one of the things on the item. There's also all of the even-numbered aldermanic districts are up for a vote, and 4 of them are contested. So be sure and participate in that. And apparently, well, let's see. As of right now, the election is going to proceed as normal.
Right.
Many people have requested absentee ballots, so the number of people that are actually going to the polls is significantly
really small.
It's going to be significantly lower than it normally would be in a spring election.
Very naked over there.
Yeah. So
don't get lonely if you go to vote.
I already voted. You haven't voted
yet.
No,
I voted the polls.
But you vote out in Caledonia.
Yeah, and I vote. I go to the polls. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and you just got a notification from somebody that the library workers are going to be recruited to work at the polls. In fact, it's been mandated.
Mandated that city
They
workers
will be there.
are going to be at the polls. So
yeah,
we can get into that a little deeper as we go. But yeah, there'll be in the city of Racine, there will be city employees manning those polls.
Well, what's interesting is wasn't there a presumed prohibition from elected officials working at the polls?
I guess so. I
don't see any reason why they can't, as long as they're not in a district where they're running for.
And usually,
for
they're probably they understand it, probably trained. They have a little.
You get a briefing. You get training to be a poll worker. Yeah.
So.
But we know of a couple of elected officials who volunteered, and their volunteerism was rebuffed, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know. No.
It's going to be interesting to see.
It depends on who you are in a lot of ways. I mean, I realize they've got a situation here where they need poll workers. But to this, now that the governor has said it's going to happen on the 7th. I mean, this beforehand we couldn't get a poll worker. We didn't know how to do it. Now all of a sudden you got poll workers. So I think it was a solution.
A solution looking for a problem.
Yeah. So,
And oftentimes when you do that, you end up creating a problem, which is completely unrelated to the solution. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the library workers. Because
Are you going to get into Coolidge's?
well, I think the whole thing comes down to
The point is that if you read her reason for wanting to set up the
I'll read
election, it's going to scare the hell out of the
this
workers
was-
if they read that and believe it.
but I
I mean, she makes it sound like you're jumping into a
like
pit of
you're
snakes.
Now, this-
invading Iwo Jima or something.
This was a
Yeah.
declaration. Now we can get into the amicus brief that was Mason in the city of Racine sent to Madison with the Democratic. I think the
Democratic Party is a plaintiff.
yeah, the plaintiff was the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. What they were asking for was the courts to postpone the election until a later date because of the pandemic virus outbreak. And the courts came back now and said, no, and Governor Evers, which I commend for the fact that he came in and said, we're going to hold it on the 7th. If we have to call a National Guard in, we'll call them in as poll workers. Apparently they're not going to do that. But Racine came in and said,
Oh no, it's going to be on the 7th.
It's going to be on the 7th.
They're going to extend the time for receiving.
that's what the courts came up with.
Yeah.
But originally, the city of Racine wanted it completely eliminated from the 7th at a later date, or all mail ballots would be.
Well, and they didn't name a later date.
No, they didn't.
It was a very ambiguous. Brief that
Again,
they filed.
but why is the city of Racine, I guess, joining the Democratic National Committee, the Democratic Party of Wisconsin? I mean, are they representing really the citizens of Racine, or are they representing a party? And I tend to believe that we've been representing a party with this mayor we have and the people that he.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, he ran as a Democrat, and it's
Right.
a non-partisan
Right.
position. You're not supposed to run as a partisan.
I think the objective is to get more open voting. In other words, that's
Right.
less restrictive voting as well.
Yeah.
But here's what the
not have the harsh checks on it where you have to have a picture ID or something like
Right.
that.
Right.
Let's just let it loose.
Right. But
Cut-
here's the
cut
thing.
all that.
Why is the Democratic National Committee and the Wisconsin Democrat so hell-bent on moving the date? Is it really about being safe for the individuals, or is it about party politics? I tend it's party politics. Now, here's the thing. When the city of Racine sent this brief in, they had Tara Coolidge, who is the
City clerk.
clerk, do a declaration, and the number 20 on her declaration said, I have never before been asked to choose between keeping democracy alive with an election and protecting the views of my city residents. I fear for the safety of my staff, volunteers, members of the public, and the families we go home to.
It's not protecting the views, protecting the lives,
Lives,
there, dude.
sorry.
Yeah,
Lives.
it's a little heavier than a view.
But here's the thing. If that isn't,
She just bought
Yeah.
whole hog into this whole scary thing.
well,
about-
it's scary.
Coronavirus,
Instead
yeah.
of saying, let's just look at it from a different perspective. What if the spin was, citizens of Racine, we are going to do every effort we can to protect the citizens, to make it available, hand sanitizer, distancing, and we want you to be able to come to the polling places and feel safe in that environment to vote. And we will do everything we can and train our poll workers to...
And you do everything you can, and
Right.
we'll all
and
cooperate
work
and
together.
we'll get through
The
it.
other
Yeah.
alternative is to scaremonger, and this is what this declaration is to me. They're scaring the citizens. We can't come. You're going to be, it's a life or death situation. I go to Walmart. I go to Pick and Save. I go to the Piggly Wiggly. I go to Menards. They've seen
Funny,
the
it's funny,
hand.
yeah. Funny, Menards didn't put that up about their employees.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
You drive up to
Yeah.
get food. I mean,
yeah. You buy stuff.
Yeah. So in this case, though, we can't vote. So when I look at things like this, it really does bother me because voting is a precious act that the citizens have, and they have to. People go and have died so they can vote. You've seen them in the third world countries. They actually dip their thumb in ink to prove that they voted.
Yeah.
Very proud of that.
Yeah.
Some people, Afghanistan.
Well, I think
under
they
the
did it
threat
in
of
Iraq
death.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
the
under the
Purple
threat
Thumb
of,
Day.
yeah, under the threat of death when you go and vote. And here, well, we can't get hand sanitizer, we can't get poll workers. Gee, we should postpone this and move it on to another day. I
Well,
don't see it.
so many people applied for absentee ballots.
Right.
You know, a very large percentage of what the typical vote turnout is in a spring election. Very large percentage. So the amount of people who actually will show up at the polls or planned on showing up at the polls is much less than it normally
Right.
would be. So I think
If any store was getting the turnout that we get it where I vote, they're going broke.
yeah.
I mean, there's no lines ever. Yeah, well, yeah, there's sometimes in a presidential election, but not in a spring election.
Yeah.
But we're not talking. If it was a presidential election, she might have a little bit more of an argument, because then you would have to have people waiting outside to keep the social distancing. But tomorrow,
But
you'll find out. Those of you who go to the poll and vote, you're going to find out just what kind of how valid was this concern of Tara Coolidge, the city clerk. Because I don't think you're going to find out.
I think she
that
was
it's
just reflecting what was going on down at City Hall.
That's
Well, I
right.
think it
And
was
all the
written
talk and all the
personally.
thing down there. Yeah.
Here's my,
Well, now wait a minute. You know, wasn't there a thing called the Fear Factory down on Machinery Row?
yeah.
Did they just relocate over at City Hall?
Maybe that's where they went.
Yeah, I mean, this
Now
is,
that would make
yeah,
sense.
this is, you should be leading instead of running, you know, and that's how I look at
Yeah.
it. You know, take the leading position and say, listen, we are going to create an environment that's safe, that you can exercise your right to vote.
You know, in a situation of war, the worst thing you can do, the hardest movement is to retreat. The way to not win a war is just fall back and hide.
Right.
And that's basically what they're doing. If you really want to fight this thing, it's not done by going in and hiding. It's by getting out there. And like the post office, they put some shields up.
Yeah.
Some of the stores are doing that. Some of them aren't. You know, there's various things you do to fight back, but you don't close down the country and say we win that way. It's a good way to just lose.
Yeah, and
Big time.
if you're a part of the vulnerable population, well then,
Yeah,
then
you're the people. Yeah,
it's
you
more
you
important
stay-
to stay away
yeah.
from exposure.
And
then.
you know
So-
what? There's been enough information to say, hey, I got an absentee ballot and I can vote that way.
Yeah.
Believe me, they know if they're not healthy and they feel, you know, there's some fear involved. Believe me, they're not dumb. They understand. Hey, I'll get an absentee ballot. I'll vote from home. I'll stay in the house.
But it does take people down if
It
you're
does.
if you're at all vulnerable
Absolutely.
to this particular
Absolutely.
thing.
And we-
You
you know,
you don't want it anyway. If you're going to the polls, be safe. You know, use the hand sanitizer to give you. Make sure you.
The social distancing
Yeah.
worked. I
Just
went
be-
into Douglas Hardware. They don't
be
even have
careful.
lines there. And I looked up there at the cash register. There were 3 people in line. And guess what? They're about 6 foot apart. It's extended all the way back. to
People
the
are
first-
very good about
Yeah.
it, you know, and they understand
Not a
it.
hard thing to
They
do.
certainly don't want to put anybody, you know, in jeopardy.
And they extended the period of time through which they will accept ballots by
Right.
mail.
Right.
So that's going to go until let's see, Tuesday's what, the 7th?
Yeah, it'll go to the 14th or the 13th, I
13th.
believe, which is a Monday. That will be the day after Easter. So then they can. Then apparently.
Oh, it's
they'll
only
be-
going until Monday.
So you can mail at any time during this week.
Yeah.
And as long as it gets there by.
If you have a ballot and you want to get it to into City Hall, you have a week after the election to be able to post
Or
it.
they-
But here's the thing. Now, this emergency power that Mason has taken in the city of Racine. Now, this is where you know, at least I question. I know we've talked about it.
Yeah.
Is how much power is really granted. Now we've looked it up. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
let's
the
flip
power?
that over to George.
Yeah.
Because George is the archivist here. In the,
Well, I just looked up because they cited
That's
the
what archivists do.
statute
Yeah.
and under which Corey Mason had talked about making this emergency declaration. And I looked it up. Powers during an emergency. This is a declaration by local government, the governing body of any local unit, blah blah blah, may declare by ordinance, etc. But basically, it's this. He can, the local unit in the emergency includes the power to bar, restrict, or remove all unnecessary traffic, both vehicular and pedestrian, from the highways.
that's it.
So that's the power he had. You notice
He doesn't even get the control of the sidewalks, huh?
no sidewalks.
What about when
he
you get to the,
can't
what about when
force
you
you to
get to
stay in
an
your house.
intersection? Is the
Right.
walkway across the intersection, is that fair game? Or?
Well, no, it says unnecessary vehicular and
Vehicular?
pedestrian. You can't cross the street.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know.
But here's the thing. That's the power he's got.
Yeah.
That's it. It certainly is not to pass legislation. He cannot bypass the
And that's exactly what he did recently,
Yeah.
was he passed legislation, which isn't his job anyway. That's the job of the city
That's
council.
the council.
Yeah.
That's a horrible violation of our separation of powers concept that is very fundamental to our governmental system
That's
as
going
well
to
as our
create
judicial
that's
system.
going to
Right?
create a real problem because if they try to enforce that law, you know,
An emergency powers, all of a sudden, a
Yeah.
governor or a mayor can start passing legislation.
Exactly. Well, and what it was the rents
Right.
rents program that was actually the rents program that they initially put into play was the fines, the fines that would be instituted for violating those. He just went out and
He
said,
needed the fines.
Yeah, he needed
on
that
an emergency
money.
basis.
Yeah.
I can't wait too much for start these fines.
So we're going to just adopt this legislation because I now have emergency powers. So I'm going to adopt this legislation. And that's what
Yeah.
he did, which is
Yeah.
illegal. So
and unnecessary. The big
Exactly.
thing is
That's
it's
the thing,
unnecessary.
And
Yeah.
people are letting it go because it's an emergency.
right,
Yeah.
it's
You
an
know,
emergency.
and
to fine.
that's where that's my concern is we're giving up our rights. We're giving up a lot of rights in this so-called emergency.
It's like a mini Patriot Act. You know, a local Patriot Act.
Well, it is.
Well,
it is.
I've never read the Patriot Act. I know that there's one person in the United States who for sure read the whole thing, and that was Senator Russ Feingold from Wisconsin, and after he read it, he voted against it. He was the only guy in the Senate that voted
Yeah.
against it.
Yeah.
They asked him, why'd you do that? He said, because I
'Cause
read it.
That's good.
But, you know, I mean, taking this kind of liberty with putting something through like this rents program is kind of akin to the way they fearmongered that Patriot Act
Right.
through.
And here's, we talked about it too. And now, once the pandemic subsides and things get semi back to normal, if they ever really do, what's going to happen? And this isn't going to be, last time the towers went down, we got the Patriot Act after that. Now we got this pandemic. What's going to happen next?
That's my concern,
Yeah.
and it's going to be probably in the medical field. I notice on these experts that are coming up, there's a big disparagement between the experts, the medical experts, who are saying stay home, don't do anything, and the politicians who have to be concerned about economics. So be careful now, we can't go too far because we don't want to just destroy the economy and destroy jobs, and we come out at the other end with nobody with nothing. We're another Bolivia or something.
I think you're going to see
Nobody's
people
allowed
starting to get a little stir crazy. Like, all right, what's happening here? Let's move this thing forward a little bit. And you're going to see businesses, and I know there's some relief that's out there that they have to apply for and different things. But it's not running a business. We're not running the business here. And what bothers me too is who is the person, agency, government agent that picks the winners and losers on his dollars. And who gets the money and who doesn't get the money? What's important and what isn't
Well,
important.
you notice who issued the emergency order statewide. It's not the governor. You all know that, right?
No.
Oh, I
It's signed by the Department of Health Services. I'm sorry, but I cannot tell you her name.
Really?
But that whole order of who can stay open and who can't and all that type of stuff, that's Department of Health Services. That did not come from the governor or the
Well, it
legislator.
was probably charged by the governor or the legislature to develop a protocol law.
All I'm telling you is the order came from the Department of Health Services. That's
But
what we're
I
all.
said it
That's where
last
we're going.
week.
And they have the power to. If you break that, you can be fined. Whatever it is, $50 a day or 100,
something,
or put in jail for 30 days under that order of the Department of Health Services. It did not come from the governor.
Who is actually going to decide who can say what and who can go where when?
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah.
That is part of it. Who can go what, where, and who decides all that.
Yeah.
And at some point,
Well, that's what it's been, and it's hard to. Well, heck, even in in Great Britain when all the bombing was going on, you could still go out in the streets.
Yeah.
No one was saying go in and hide and that type of stuff. Take care. The British said no, it's live free or die, and in this.
Well,
in this-
he's got me worried now with this exertion of power because I'm a chronic jaywalker. I could be doing life.
Yeah. Come out of your house, man, and you're a villain.
here's the other point I wanted to make was now that the mayor is deemed the Democrat and he files a brief with the Democratic National Party to change the date of the election. he institutes his own legislation, and he endorses the unified referendum, which is, pushing hard.
Yeah.
And he's got people on his staff that are out campaigning in the aldermanic.
Oh, that's
Right.
a good one too. Yeah.
Now-
Actively working on campaigns.
Right. Well, that unified is very close because the communication director, Powell, wife, is involved in the marketing of this Yes the Kid campaign for Unified.
Yeah.
So we're the $1 billion. So, I mean, it's all this cluster of power is grabbed right in that office.
It's all coming together right there at the top.
And you got to
isn't it?
remember, we had a show not long ago. Remember when the property tax checks or bills were sent out,
Right.
And it was a unified, how much money was
That
being
came
taken.
out again this year. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
big
that was
fat line.
again right out
Yeah.
of this kids' power, and the same people were involved. So
Well, I've heard that taxes aren't going up.
yeah, that's what it says on every
But
one of
have
his
you seen
forms.
your water bill?
The water bills? Check them
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, check your water bill out.
A lot of fees and what else do they call them? Service charges and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
But your water bill is going up.
Right.
And they didn't reduce taxes by a commensurate amount. What they did is they shift the money that would have gone over here, paid through taxes, now is on your water bill. So in effect, they have raised taxes.
Yeah, and they're going to continue to do it.
Yeah.
And when they say they're not going to raise taxes, hold on to your wallet.
Boy, howdy.
Well, I would just like to say, just at the end, tomorrow there's an election. I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but there's 4 people that really are going to be right in there raising taxes, right along with the mayor, and there's 4 kind of independent thinkers. You might just want to take a look at them, hoping you can pick out which is which, because otherwise it's going to be just a continuous thing of raising taxes and trying to hide it, lying about it, this type of thing.
Yeah.
So we have a break. Elections are always an opportunity for both sides. The people that want to have bigger government, the people who want to have smaller government.
Well, to my way of thinking, if the mayor's endorsing a candidate, I'm going to run like hell from that candidate.
Well, I would hope so.
Personally.
If you look and see what's going on.
We got a bobblehead council predominantly now.
No.
We don't need a kind of absolute, a unanimous bobblehead.
Right.
That's
Well,
crazy.
Yeah, their power is so diminished. It really,
Well, that's
I don't
true,
know
too,
how much they do. But when the mayor's going out and actually establishing legislation under these emergency powers, I mean, that's a scary point.
Yeah, and who's going to check them if the city
Well, there's no
council-
checking on that council,
Yeah.
and the people that are he's endorsing. And here's another thing: mayor goes out and endorses candidates. I don't remember that in other mayors.
No.
I mean, they're always, there may be
neither.
some lean in a direction, but I never saw them go out and actually fundraise for them, put on events for the candidate.
No. In fact, before Dickert, I don't ever recall one where a candidate came up because the mayor wanted him to run against an opponent on the council.
Right.
That started with Dickert, and it's really gone big time now, where not only is it finding the candidate, but they're endorsing him, helping him raise money, and actually working on their campaign.
Yeah, this is supposed to be something that comes up out of the community. The community selects somebody to represent them. It's not like somebody comes in and this is your representative.
Well,
Vote for this guy.
And not only that, most of the time the Democratic Party now is just funneling a lot of money into these aldermanic races.
Oh yeah, from out of the state even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're just pumping this
crazy.
money. So now you've got some local, person in the community who, is very involved in the community, and he wants to, or she wants to run for that position. I mean, she doesn't have the backing, she doesn't have the finances, she doesn't have the people that can go out. But the committee, the Democratic Party comes in and says, well, we'll put our empty suit up, and we'll just
Flood them with money.
Yeah, flood them with
We'll
money.
help with,
Just to clarify, we're not partisan here. If it sounds like we're picking on a Democratic Party, well, it's because they're the party that's exerting the most power right now. But we're not in favor of the Republican
Oh,
Party. all
no,
that
no,
much
they'll
either,
do the
so.
same thing. There's
Yeah.
no question.
They have done that.
Yeah,
in fact,
yeah,
they've given
absolutely.
money to aldermanic candidates.
Yeah.
But not in the amount that's been
This
going
last
on
one
with
just
some of these
seemed
candidates.
extreme,
Thousands of
that
dollars
there was a
that are-
lot of mailings done. There seemed to be a lot of money spread out in this aldermanic races in the city
Yeah.
of Racine.
And I'd just like to also point out that what we're talking about the city is not being done before, where the mayor is helping out with the aldermanic races. Go up the line to the state and federal. It's done all the time. the governor's endorsing people.
Well, that's what's
who are
happening in
running in the
Racine,
Assembly
yeah.
of State Senate. The president's endorsed. That's fine. That's your partisan politics. But the city was supposed to be kind of exempt from that. That's why we have a
Nonpartisan, yeah.
spring election. They do their elections in the fall, and it was supposedly a totally different environment. But Corey Mason has really brought all his experience in
He's
Madison,
intensified it,
right?
yeah.
He brought it right down to City Hall, and now that's what we got.
Anyway, think about it. Go out and vote tomorrow. Keep yourself as safe as you can. Follow the guidelines and be courteous to the people around you. Thank you for participating in our democracy as we expect you to do. And we'll see you next week. We'll have another report for you on all this stuff and much more. Thanks.